Marvel Studios' The Falcon and the Winter Soldier really shows off Bucky's best asset, that vibranium arm. But he can't do it by himself. He definitely got a little hand from VFX supervisor Eric Levin. Hey, Eric.
Hi, Lorraine.
So when you're reading a script and you see that Bucky is using his vibranium arm, what's the first thing that goes through your mind?
We start knowing that that's probably going to be a visual effects shot. The people at Legacy Effects who built the practical arm, the sleeve that Sebastian wears, the practical arm looks so good on camera, even if it's not perfect. It gives us so much reference and lighting detail and texture that we can base our CG asset off of. And yet it still sort of has limitations because at the end of the day, it's basically made of rubber, and rubber does not move or react or light the same way as vibranium. So we usually have to replace the arm in visual effects.
What does Sebastian wear on his arm to help you create the VFX?
Sebastian has a couple different options for arms, practically. He'll have a sleeve that goes from his wrist to his shoulder and tucks inside his shirt. He'll have a fingerless glove, or he'll have a fingered glove, because depending on what he's doing in the scene, sometimes he might have to dial a phone or hold a fork, and he can't do that with a big heavy rubber glove.
So then how much of that rubber arm actually makes it into the final footage?
I would say it depends on the shot, maybe 40%, 30%. If he bends in the elbow, usually that has to be fixed. Usually there's a seam at the wrist that has to be fixed. And then depending the nature of the lighting in the scene, we'll have to replace it most of the time.
So one of the most surprising moments is when Bucky's arm becomes disconnected. Could you talk us through that scene?
The Dora Milaje have trusted Bucky to turn Zemo over to them in a timely manner, which he did not do. And so now the Dora get into a little tussle with John Walker, and basically when Bucky steps in to kind of put a stop to it, Io is able to very quickly detach the arm. And Sam even says, "Did you know they could do that?" And Bucky says, "No, I did not know they could do that." So since it was a Wakandan arm, the Wakandans put a little fail-safe in there, so if they ever got into a situation like the one that they did, they were able to hit a little magic code and the arm would just sort of pop off.
So obviously Sebastian Stan can't just pop his arm off. So what did you decide to shoot practically versus create with VFX?
We try to do as much practically as possible. There was a detached arm that was built by the props department, so that at the very least, that was something we could drop on the floor and the camera operators would know kind of roughly how fast it would fall, where it would land. So we had that as a reference. Even if we were going to replace it was still great reference. And then Sebastian was a good sport about having his arm tucked behind his back and sort of, picking up this prop arm and pretending to connect it. One of the more interesting things he needed to do was before he could put his arm into his shoulder socket, he needed to pull his sleeve up out of the way. And the low-tech solution that we came up with was to actually put magnets in the sleeve so that as he lifted up his sleeve, it would sort of stick on the top of his shoulder, and he was able to put his arm on that way.
So is there anything about that scene you think people might have missed?
So Io is basically touching there's some magical pressure point here, some magical button that's going to detach his arm. And Io knows where that is. Bucky's wearing a black shirt, and it's kind of hard to tell what's going on. So there were conversations about, well, should we have like a bit of energy glow? Should there be a little purple Wakandan energy signature or a little light to just help the audience figure out what's going on? So there were a lot of conversations about what color should this light be? How bright should this light be? What should the light do? So we ended up doing a very, very subtle light inside around his shoulder, and then a very subtle light that sort of travels down his arm. It's sort of a blink and you'll miss it kind of thing, but if you're looking for it, you'll see this little energy surge that goes through his arm.
So what has it meant to you to work with these two beloved characters in the MCU?
Oh, it means a lot. I mean, I'm obviously following so many great people before me, but now to be part of that universe and to know that, we're shepherding that stuff forward. There are a lot of firsts in this show. This is the first time we really get a look at Bucky's new arm. This is the first time we're using the new Endgame shield. It's such a big, enormous universe with so many cool people working together. It really is amazing to be part of that now.
Well, it's been amazing talking with you, Eric. Thank you so much. Everyone, be sure to watch all episodes of Marvel Studios' The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, now streaming only